gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for March 7th, 2024 for the next hour or so. Let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, everything from that Xbox showcase and what is the future of Final Fantasy VII Remake on other consoles. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how are you doing?
I am here to further my agenda across the internet. I'm ready to inundate folks with my ideals of tiles, black coffee, and corgi companionship.
Consider me one of your acolytes. I'm an acolyte of tiles and coffee. Let's make it happen.
Fantastic.
And then I'll take a deep breath and I'll step outside, Jen. That's what I'll do over here.
I'll let you hold Scout.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. No, how's it going this week? You got the internet figured out, it seems like?
Oh my gosh. It turns out I love it and I hate it when a technician will head to your place.
Yeah.
Look at the problem and then just be immediately upset. Not with me, but with the previous technician that set it up.
Oh, fun.
God bless this dude. He comes in, and he looks at the setup and he goes like, "Do you know who did this?" I'm like, I don't. I didn't catch the guy's name, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He goes like, "I can't believe someone from our company would do this. No wonder you have a problem here, boss." Like,
okay, so it sounds like you got the right one this time. It sounds like you got the one that actually does all the work around here.
Yeah, and like this dude like went on to explain to me about like all this other stuff about like why this was wrong here, why that was wrong, and then like very cordial, very nice, managed to fix it. Oh, also Grubb, I wasn't expecting this dude until 1 p.m. my time.
Sure.
He calls me in the morning and goes like, "Hey boss, I finished my other appointments. You want me to just come over earlier?" I'm like, "Yeah, do that. Please. Let's go." Okay. Fantastic.
It worked out great. Like it's in. So how long did it take him to actually fix it? 'Cause from my side of things, it seemed like he just did one thing and magically it was on.
It took him about half an hour. Like I heard I wanted to give him some space and wanted to make sure that Scout wasn't freaking out. So I heard some drilling, some wrenching, and some zip ties happening.
Fair enough. Well, you got it on just in time to send Dan his video.
Oh God!
For Super Dan 64, which was excellent work, Jan. Seriously, great work.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Look, obviously, the editing very good, but let's not undersell the mid-Atlantic accent you're doing in there for the newsreel. That is incredible stuff.
Is that what that accent is? I've always just considered that like an old-timey radio voice.
I could be misplacing the nomer. I could be misnomering there, but I thought that's what a mid-Atlantic is. Like in movies, a mid-Atlantic is kind of sounding fancy but still American and not quite British.
Okay,
but I think that is also qualified as like when in those newsreels they're using a mid-Atlantic sort of. Hey, well, we're talking it up here, and we're not quite sure where this voice is from, and it's like, yeah, okay. But you nailed it, and it took me a couple seconds. I'm like, no, that is just Jan. I'm like, did Jan hire a voice actor? And he did. Named Jan Ochoa.
That's why I'm here, folks. Hire me. I'll be in your game. I'll whatever fanfic you have going on, and you need a voice. I'm not. Yeah, I'll do it.
Careful, man.
I'll do it.
You're a better person.
I'm ready
than
to
me.
sell out. I am so ready to sell out, y'all.
Let's make it happen, everybody. Let's make Jan's dreams a reality.
If you have an old man character, I gotcha.
Without a doubt, yeah. Come on, people. Cut the check or, just reach out to him. All right, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with everything announced in the Xbox Partner Preview Showcase from yesterday. This is from Lottie Lynn at Eurogamer. The Xbox Partner Preview Showcase offered us a look at a number of third-party games heading to Xbox Series X and S this year. We were shown a variety of trailers during the 30-minute presentation, including the taste of Japanese mythology-inspired Kunitsu Gami Path of the Goddess and the announcement of the Sinking City 2. Whether you missed the presentation or not, here is a rundown. There was quite a few games in this thing, Jan. You were busy at the time, so I don't know how much of this you were able to catch. I think it was a pretty good show. It was a pretty good presentation. They just went trailer after trailer, and there was enough I'm at least curious to play that, to know how I feel about it, that I was pretty happy with the end result. So it started with the Unknown 9 Awakening. This is a game from developer Reflector and publisher Bandai Namco. It's a body-hopping adventure, and it will be arriving this summer. It looks very Assassin's Creed-y. Surprisingly like Assassin's Creed.
I could get into that. I think it's funny that I don't have an appetite for actual Assassin's Creed, but if someone tells me Assassin's Creed like, I'm like, all right, I could get into this.
Right, and that's where I'm like, right now, it's like very excited, like, okay, Ghost of Tsushima, I'm going to hop into that, because that sounds great. You're right, I don't need all the baggage that comes with Assassin's Creed. Not that would weigh me down, I would just ignore it, but something about it, just like, I'm okay for now, for the most part. Although I was interested in playing a little bit of Mirage. Sleight of Hand. This was a CGI trailer, so it's hard to fully understand what was happening here. Sleight of Hand references the fact that this character does seem to be holding cards that might have magical powers, but they didn't say it was a card game. They said it is like a third-person action, maybe stealth game. It looks very much like Dishonored in some ways. I imagine cards will probably play into the powers that you're able to do, and maybe the cards are, like Mike said, maybe it's like a Gambit thing. You actually throw the cards and they're charged up or something like that. I don't really know. Again, it's CGI trailer. A little bit annoyed that we're still having to get CGI trailers in these things when it's I just want to understand what this game is. But I get that that's a little bit easier to do than to get something ready if you're a development team and you're not ready to show it off. Having to do all this work to get the game to that point for a showcase like this probably just doesn't make sense these days. The Altars. This is you'll have to explore an alien planet, ensuring you stay safe from its deadly sunrises by creating alternate versions of yourself. They say sounds easy, right? This one was really difficult to get a beat on, Jan, because it looked like so many different games, and at one point it looked more like Fallout Shelter than anything else. But the shelter's in this giant wheel that goes across the land. I don't know. It was wild, but there's a lot going on there. At the very least, it looked interesting.
I was particularly interested in this because apparently the main character's name is either Jan or Jan.
Well, there you go.
So I'm all in. Game of the year, baby.
That's all it takes, everybody.
That's all it takes.
I do get excited when I hear a character named Jeff. We're underrepresented in video games. There's not enough Jeffs around here. Sleight of Hand's coming to both PC and Xbox Series X. Or no, that's PC and Xbox Series X via Game Pass. And so far, all these games, I think most of the games in this list are going to be out this year. Next up is Creatures of Ava. This one, I'm very curious to see how you feel about it, Jan. It is a Pokemon adjacent thing. It is about this lady. I think she has the Pied Piper flute thing, and she's going out and maybe not capturing creatures, but saving them. And then she's not bad. I don't think she's using them to battle. I think she's using them to bring them to a shelter and keep them safe. So would a Pokemon game that de-emphasizes combat, does that sound interesting to you?
It's not specifically what I come to Pokemon for, but I do like the look of this. I think it's interesting that we haven't seen a lot of Pokemon Snap clones, and an early bit of this trailer is the main character pulling out a camera. Also, it looks like she's kind of doing a Ghostbusters beam at some of them to free them.
Yep.
I'm really curious as to how this the gameplay will be in this, but I like the look of it a lot.
Yeah, I'm also curious what it's actually going to feel like in the end. I can imagine if you were to take Pokemon and sprinkle on some Viva Pinata, where it's we are going to save some of these creatures, but you need to do specific things and have certain items with you to be able to save them. I think that would be very interesting.
Why not just more Viva Pinata?
Yeah, maybe a lot more Viva Pinata. They should just make a Viva Pinata. That's what we really need. That one's from 11-bit Studios, and they do like make it explicit. It is about it's a conservation allegory. Yeah, if you're looking for your game to have a little bit more mindfulness in there, this might be it. This is another one that's coming to both PC and Xbox Series X and S later this year, and it will be on Game Pass. Roblox Griefville Cross Chucky. This one really threw me for a loop, Jan. It was just straight up Chucky running around. And we're like, oh, is this, what is this? And then the other characters turned around and they were Roblox characters with like the flat faces and everything. And it was very confusing because I'm just like, are there horror games inside of Roblox now? And then I remember they had that kissing update, which is like, we're going to start making, that's what the fans called it. The kissing update was like, they're going to have new parts of Roblox that are for the older kids. And I guess that involves what is basically a 4v1 asymmetrical multiplayer game like Dead by Daylight, but with Chucky and Roblox characters. Jan, how much are you going to play this?
Listen, Grubb, y'all know me. I don't like to poo-poo on people's interests,
sure.
But maybe the kids shouldn't have grown up with Roblox. Maybe it was a mistake.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like, man, we could have done better by these kids, huh?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a Chucky movie in full, but I don't think they should add Chucky to anything.
Have you seen the Simpsons episode with the Krusty the Clown, the evil Krusty the Clown doll?
Yes.
Okay, well, just watch that because it's just set to evil. That's all you really need to know.
All right. Okay.
The Sinking City 2 was announced. It's arriving next year. It's one of the games that actually is coming out in 2025. I forgot about that one. And it's also coming to PlayStation 5. It's a sequel to The Sinking City, a horrific standalone tale set in the 1920s United States. I never played much Sinking City, but I know people who really like that game. So, hey, you're going to get more of it. Final Fantasy XIV Online got its date. It's coming March 21st to Xbox Series X and S after years and years of being rumored, finally making the leap over to Xbox. With the starter edition beginning 21st of March.
I feel like they would have made this a bigger deal or made it more prominent rather than just like tacking it on at like the first 10 or so minutes of this preview.
I think there was a time in it, like previously, when it did get announced, but they did it at, like, I think, a Final Fantasy concert, and Phil Spencer came out or something like that, or maybe it was a Final Fantasy event. I wasn't paying too much attention. I didn't care. But I think they previously made a bigger deal out of it, so now it's like, now here's the date. But you're right, it kind of feels like this is going to be the thing that, despite the game being available in so many places, it's probably going to be very, very popular and more popular than a lot of the things on this list. Monster Jam Showdown, a monster truck game coming out 2024. I'm excited about this. The Gravedigger is there.
I had no idea that the monster trucks could leave the arena. I didn't know they were allowed to play in the world.
Yep. Now they've broken free of the confines of the arena, and now they're taking over the world. It's off-road racing and freestyle driving game arriving later this year. Then the Persona 3 Reload expansion pass was announced. This is episode Aegis. I don't know how to say it, but it is that previous DLC episode that people are like, hey, is that going to actually get included in this? And then they're like, well, no, looks like they're not doing that. They're remaking the original. They're not remaking Fez, which I think had this. And it's like, no, they actually are going to do it. And it is an expansion pass. You do have to buy it separately, but it is included with Game Pass. All that said, when people are like, man, are they going to do that? That's weird. They haven't done that. Every person, down to every last man and woman, then follows that by saying, I hate that. I don't like it at all. I'm like, oh, okay. You people are weird.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
I don't believe them. I think you said it right. I feel like you said it right.
I think you're right. Yes, thank you. I think you're right that I'm right. That's a very good point. Then the first Berserker Kazan, new action RPG from Nexon. With the help of magic and a massive sword, you'll be able to slash foes to pieces and solve puzzles when this game releases on Xbox Series X and S. This is a From Software like. It is a Soulsborne looking game. But set in the Dungeons and Fighters universe. I can never keep all. There's dragons and eggs and Dungeons and Fighters. The DNF Duel game. This is a spinoff of that, and it's a From Software like kind of game. I think it looks pretty cool in terms of style. And the more I watched the combat, it was like a little bit stiff or a little bit underwhelming. And I hope that is not the case throughout the whole game.
Yeah, it looks a little framey in certain bits of that trailer.
Yes, it definitely had some performance issues, and hopefully that does not follow through to the final game. I don't think they gave this one a date, so hopefully it has enough time to fix that stuff up. Then there was Tales of Kinzera Zao, which is a game we've seen a bunch of times before, coming out next month on the 23rd of April. It is a Metroidvania, and as Sean pointed out, it's one that plays a little bit more like Metroid, where you're going to have a projectile weapon, and that's how you fight most of the time. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Parts of it even looked like Ori. So I'm a huge Metroidvania head. We already got a great one this year. Give me another one of those. It looked very good.
I love any Metroidvania with a ton of movement abilities, and this looks like it's full of them. So cannot wait.
Frostpunk. Also, go ahead. Yeah.
For whatever reason, low-key reminds me of Crash Bandicoot, maybe because of the masks. But my brain is broken, y'all.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot definitely like aping some of that style, and it's not in maybe the best way at all times. Also, Kinzera Zao, however, doing it in the best way. Seems very in touch with that stuff in a much more mindful way. Frostpunk 2 coming out July 25th. Sequel to Frostpunk. I think it looks like a big budget sequel to a game that did very well the first time around. I like Frostpunk a lot, and it just seems like they're like, okay, let's do that again, but spend even more money on it this time. And hey, I'm down. I really like Frostpunk. And then Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, first announced at the Xbox Showcase last summer. Summer before that, something like that. God, I can't place it now. But it's that Capcom action game that has a whole bunch of other stuff in it, including, I think, we saw some tower defense elements, but it seemed like it had like 15 different mechanics that they showed in this trailer. The very least, it's very stylish. It looks like a combination of a bunch of different Capcom games, including like Okami Flare. Oh. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening in this game. It looks very interesting, and it also looks like they are like minimizing dialogue, which I was excited about. It's like, no, they're just gonna do a lot of visual storytelling.
All right, Denis Villeneuve.
Hey, I love it. Give me more of it. And I was pretty impressed by this. But like with most games in this showcase, Jan, and that was the final game, it's like, man, I kind of just need to play it to really know how I feel. It's not like, oh, well, Nintendo showed their game that I've played before, and here's a remaster, and I know I'm excited about that. In this case, it's like, hey, I think this looks cool, good. I think I forgot Stalker, the original trilogy, was something we talked about yesterday. But it's like, most of these I just need to get my hands on. And Path of the Goddess, at the very least, looks good, but I'm going to have to play it.
Yeah, I still... even though I knew what game it was, I still thought for a second, is this Onimusha? Oh, yeah. Right. It's not Onimusha.
Right.
But yeah, looking at the trailer, I'm not quite sure what to make of it. I hope it just isn't one of those games with too many ideas, where it doesn't feel like it delivers on a good chunk of them. But again, it's a wait and see.
It is a wait and see, and that's totally fine. You're allowed to be that kind of game, and so far everything they've showed has been like, hey, no, this is all green light. I'm like, yeah, keep going forward with this. I will check in on this the next time you're ready to show it, or if we get a chance to play it, that would be great. But that's another one coming out 2024, and it will be on Game Pass. So you'll be able to try it if you have Game Pass. Pretty good showcase overall in terms of the presentation, like I said. Also, just yet another reminder, like, oh yeah, Game Pass is still a pretty good deal. I think I've said recently, I think PlayStation Plus is also a very good deal. It is. But it's like, there's occasionally just a slightly more excitement for new games when it comes to Game Pass, and I think this was a good example of that.
Yeah, I think if anything, this is not only another endorsement of like, oh, Game Pass is pretty good, but also PC Game Pass is also pretty good, Grubb.
Yep. Absolutely. And most of these were announced for PC as well.
I see. Okay. I was going to ask, was there any mention of like, hey, the Xboxes, they're cool, go buy a console? Or was it just pretty much focused on the games, like nothing about hardware?
Yeah, I think the undercurrent to all of their messaging continues to be and has been for a while. And it was present here is we don't care where you play the game. Play the game. Play the game where you're going to play it. It is on Game Pass, though, but you should probably play it on Game Pass, but play Game Pass wherever you want to play Game Pass. So I don't think that's changing. And if anything, the suggestion seems to be they're going to be doubling down on that messaging going forward. All right, next up, Sony has the Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy on lock, or maybe not. This is from Levi Winslow at Kotaku. I hope you weren't holding your breath for Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, and whatever the threequel will be called to come to a non-PlayStation console. The first two installments of the trilogy will apparently remain PlayStation console exclusives. In an interview with the Washington Post, Sony Interactive Entertainment's Vice President of Second and Third-Party Content Ventures and Strategic Initiatives, Christian Svensson, said that SNS, Sony and Square, agreed to make the remake trilogy of Final Fantasy VII a console exclusive when development on the project started. Svensson added that the focusing on third-party content is ingrained in PlayStation's DNA to this day and connects to how we've worked together on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They go on for a bit, but there is later an update. This is later in the day. Washington Post reporter Gene Park, who did the original story, has amended his interview with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth producer Yoshinori Kitase to state that only the first two games in the trilogy are confirmed to be PlayStation console exclusives. It was a mistake on my part to write the sentence like that. The entire Final Fantasy VII trilogy is not yet confirmed to be Sony exclusive, the Post journalist wrote on Twitter. Now, Jan, that clarification, notwithstanding, the next game is going to be exclusive to PlayStation, at least for a little while, at the very least, but probably for an extended period of time. This almost certainly just comes down to, we don't want that messaging out there because that's one of the bargaining chips that we want Sony to pay us a lot more money still for to confirm the next game is actually going to be fully exclusive. Because as it stands right now, I'm sure it's like, we have an agreement. There's some stuff out there, but you can't just go out there and say that. That's part of the marketing agreement we would have, and we would need that to be figured out and ironed out before we go out there and start talking that way. That's what this seems like to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, and it would feel very weird at this point for the third one to not be a PlayStation exclusive. Is the general language just saying PlayStation exclusive or PS5 exclusive?
It's a
right
PlayStation
now,
exclusive. Although
okay.
I get the sense that this next one's going to come out pretty quick and will still be on PS5.
Right. Sure. I think it'd just be odd to expect it like at launch to also be on Xbox or Switch or whatever the Switch 2 would look like at this point. Because it does feel like this is a big bargaining chip on Square's side. One of the only things it seems like that they are doing business-wise correctly versus a lot of their approach to other games. Because I don't know, I feel like further down the line, maybe after the third Final Fantasy VII Remake game is out and there's enough time, you do a collection on the Xbox and like you make that a big deal after that exclusivity deal runs out.
Like years from now, like the next, like, and that I think that's still actually on the table. Even if it's like, as it stands today, this is always going to be exclusive, always is in like, through this generation. It's not, there's no way that the deal that they have is in perpetuity. No matter how much money Sony has given for this franchise to be exclusive to PS5 as it is and PS4 before it, it does have an expiration date and things can change at that point. But if you are someone out there who is waiting, don't do that. You do
not.
It is a big question mark about when, and then when it does expire, Sony's or Square Enix, I should say, their interest may have moved on to something else, and they might not have the manpower, the development power to actually get this ported over to other stuff in any quick way. So just play it where you can find it now. Obviously, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, gonna come to PC at some time. And if you want to wait for that one, I suppose that's fine. But yeah, this thing is going to be a PlayStation game for the most part. And if you really want to play it, you should be doing exactly that.
I saw... maybe this was last week when the reviews were rolling out, but I saw Gene Park saying that this, if he didn't already have a PS5 because of his job, that this would be the thing to motivate him to do so, to finally pick one up. I think I agree with Gene in a major way. I feel like if you have played Spider-Man or Miles Morales on your PS4, you can know what to expect with Spider-Man 2. And in like looking back at it now, it's like, maybe I didn't need to play Spider-Man 2. I really enjoyed it a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing game, but man, Grubb, Rebirth and, all the miscellaneous shenanigans I've wound up falling into. this would make me get a PS5 if I didn't have one for the job.
Yeah, and I wonder. I think that is a sentiment, a word of mouth sort of marketing that is going to pick up a little bit here. Because so far it's like it hasn't quite happened, at least according to the data, like in places like Japan, where we see Game Data Library says retail launch sales of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in Japan see a drop from Final Fantasy 16 of 22% and from Final Fantasy VII Remake of 63%. Now, digital sales are expected to be higher than either of those, but with the drop of retail sales, I wouldn't expect it to be much higher than 16, and it is definitely below 7 Remake. So, based on the numbers we have so far, it seems like the people who are playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are the ones who already played Remake, and then it's like a smaller portion of them. And I think people are going to recognize here pretty quickly. It's like, this is a big tentpole thing that even if you were, even if you didn't play Remake, well, now's the time to go back. And I think they're going to have a 2-pack of both games that is going to get a lot more people on board. But I think people are going to realize that, no, you don't need the one with the bigger number. This is where a lot of the interesting stuff is happening with Final Fantasy right now.
I also think that splitting this remake into 3 parts is also still going to bone them.
Yeah, I think that's showing up in the numbers here a little bit. Now, I mean, you know, selling it to the same people over and over again, three different times, probably was beneficial. But I think there is a certain subset of the audience that I think is sitting out waiting till the end, and then maybe at the end they don't actually pull the trigger on it because they're like, well, I waited this long and I'm playing other stuff now. That could happen. Let's see, the Game Data Library, who does keep track of this stuff from like Famitsu sales, and this is just retail again, not digital, points out the more sluggish PS5 sales for February would also indicate the game is selling to its existing base, but it is the second biggest retail launch on PS5 yet, so that's a good sign for Rebirth. The only game that was bigger in terms of retail sales was Final Fantasy 16, which did about 337 copies in its first week. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth did 262,000 copies, and then the next closest is Armored Core 6, which did 115,000 copies. So it's like, and then, you know, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth did 102,000 copies. So it's like kind of shows you like where things are, at least in Japan. So I think it's a good sign. Final Fantasy is still very big, but more people are showing up for the new sequel than necessarily for 7 and Remake and Rebirth. But fair enough.
It's the power of Ben Starr.
Ben Starr moves people like nothing else. That's absolutely right. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we get back, a lot more headlines, including what's happening with Princess Peach and her Showtime right after this. All right, we're back, and Princess Peach Showtime demo is available now. This is from My Nintendo News. And a little more than 2 weeks from now, Princess Peach Showtime will be releasing exclusively on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo has been gradually providing more details about the game since they revealed it in a Nintendo Direct last year. Of course, seeing it is one thing, but playing it is another thing entirely, and it is available now on the eShop. I think I'm going to get this. I might try to play it, but I mean, the game's out so soon, I might just wait for that as well.
I feel like we've gone it to a point, Grubb, where demos are back. Baby
demos are, yeah, and Nintendo does a lot of them, and I think if Nintendo's doing it, there must be some evidence that it works.
Yeah, like I don't think I would have checked out Pikmin 4 if it wasn't for that really good demo, because they give you a really good chunk of it. But then going back to something like Triangle Strategy, I believe Octopath Traveler 2 also had a pretty lengthy demo.
Square Enix is huge on demos, and they like use it as like a feedback tool. They use it as clearly as marketing, but they also like they've done a great job of like letting you pick up from where you left off in the demo. Like Square Enix is like S tier demo development company.
I kind of want to check out Showtime.
Yeah, I do too. I am at the very least, I want to show it to the kids. But I think even if I didn't have kids, I'm like, well, let's see what's going on with Princess Peach. I like that character. This is cool that she's getting her own game again. There's like a lot of fun like costumes that she's wearing. Like that's the conceit here, is that she's got all these costumes that give her different powers, which is kind of like a pretty common thing in games these days. Obviously, that goes back to Odyssey in a lot of ways. But I don't know. It seems pretty cool here. So yeah, I'm gonna check this out. And I'm like, I could wait. Maybe I'll wait until we get code, but we won't get code until it's out. So I might as well just play this demo and see how I feel about it a little bit. Maybe we could stream it on the site at some point. All right. New Fallout trailer gives our best look yet at Walton Goggins, fascinating ghoul in Fallout. This is from Michael McWhorter at Polygon. A new trailer for Prime Video's Fallout TV series released Thursday and gives us our best look yet at the show's grim post-apocalyptic story. Did you get a chance to check this out, Jan?
I did. I love the GOG.
I'm down with the GOG. I love Walton Goggins. He is both the ghoul. He's also the he sets up the story sort of as the narrator, at least in this trailer, and he's probably going to do so in the show. And the narrator / Vault Tech salesperson. And I think that was a good choice as well to like use every part of the GOG, right? If you got him, you got to use him. Yeah. Let's see if I can bring this up. But yeah, I don't know. What's your knee-jerk reaction from this?
It looks much better than I was expecting. I feel like we run the gamut when it comes to video game adaptations for shows. Like, I'm still not quite sure what Twisted Metal was going for. I have no interest in the Halo TV series. And my own experience with Fallout is pretty slight, but I think I could get into this show. I kind of like the tone they're going for. It doesn't look bad, Grubb.
I think that's where I'm at, where I will say it doesn't look bad. I am not sure it's like looking unmissable. It's like, oh, this can't, must see TV or whatever. I don't feel that way about it after this trailer, but you're right. I'm not like, that's also not criticism because I don't think it looks bad. I hope it's not run of the mill. I hope it's not bland. I hope the story's not just kind of like, okay, like, yeah, that's a lot of plot. I hope it like is going for something and actually nailing something. And we'll see that there's every possibility it does get there. It does have Jonathan Nolan, who I think can write something that is, intriguing at the very least. And I think that's something that Fallout needs. It can't just be Vault Dweller trying to survive in the world.
Yeah.
There's got to be some mystery, some other thing happening there. And I think Jonathan Nolan can do that. But they're not really setting that up too much in this. This trailer is about, here's this Vault Dweller who is naive going out into the real world after living in the vault for forever, like they said 200 years, something like that. Going out in the world, and now that has hardened her. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get that. That's very familiar, well-trodden territory, especially for Fallout. Like, that's like the basic stuff you do in every single one of these games.
I saw that they had a dog in it. I remember the game has a dog, so that's exciting.
Right, it was the meat. Is that the name of the dog
from meat?
The dog meat? Dog meat, that's right, yes. Good name for a dog. Yeah, I don't know. It looks... actually, the Brotherhood of Steel stuff looks very good. I'm not sure exactly if I think the suits look great on film, but they don't look bad. I think this character talk about like, oh, why'd you join the Brotherhood of Steel? I want to hurt the people that hurt me. It's like, okay, there's something there. I'm like very interested to see what happens with that.
Yeah, I also think they did a good job with the makeup on Walter Goggins. He looks gross.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I think it looks like a combination of practical makeup and probably CG for like the nose and stuff like that, and they nailed it. It looks very good. And I'll say it looks like the game. I mean, all of the art looks like just straight up adapted from the game, not like, okay, we're gonna here's one thing from the game and the rest of it is, well, we got to do our own stuff. It's like, no, the vault suits are the exact blue and yellow from the game. The Brotherhood of Steel, the power armor is exactly from the cover of the game. The flying ships look exactly like they do in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. The dog, I mean, it's a German Shepherd, sure. It looks exactly like the dog. Everything is exactly from the game, and I kind of appreciate that. It's like if you're going to adapt these properties, like use them, and this show seems like it's doing that.
I want to see if they're gonna highlight how impractical a Pip-Boy may actually be in real life.
Yes, right. That would be very frustrating to use or whatever. I bet that would be a clever thing and good source of comic relief. We'll see.
Also, it looks like the world in the show smells bad.
Yeah, and that's always important. You want that from a post-apocalyptic thing. All these people look like they need a shower. All right. EA says Apex Legends will expand beyond the traditional Battle Royale universe this year. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Apex Legends players can expect to start seeing the game expand beyond the traditional Battle Royale universe over the coming year as Electronic Arts looks to attract more players to the franchise. Speaking at the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference on Wednesday, EA CEO Andrew Wilson outlined a plan which he believed can lead to incredible growth for Respawn's live service game, which celebrated its 5th anniversary in February. Man, already 5 years. Wilson said Apex Legends is one of the most successful new game IP launches of the last 10 to 15 years, having built a community of hundreds of millions of players with an enviable churn rate. I always envy people's churn rates. If you're thinking about streaming services which are dealing with 40% and 50% churn, we've got a core community in Apex Legends that has 75% retention over the course of a 5-year period. It's an incredible franchise. But in the growth of the franchise, we do see ebbs and flows. And where we've gotten to with Apex is we've got that first cohort of community that have been with us for 5 years, and it's big, it's large, it's global, and it's deeply engaged. But then Wilson went on to discuss EA's strategy for growing the franchise over the next 5 to 10 years and said this initially will be focused on making the game more accessible and after that more culturally relevant to different markets. It's an incredible game. It's a core game. It's not for the faint of heart when you come into it. And that's part of the charm and part of why people love it. But job number one for us is how do we make that a little bit more friendly? And that's what you're starting to see. You're starting to see it with Season 20, which is really built around how do we drive more acquisition and more engagement. Let's start there real quick, Jan. Is that something you think that they could pull off with this? I mean, making it a little bit more friendly is like maybe turning the dial a little bit, right?
Yeah. Do you lose too much of the Apex Legends identity by making it more friendly or more approachable?
Right. I mean, that's not really an option, right? But
yeah.
Because you can't lose that core that he's talking about because those are the people they haven't lost so far. And that's one of the big reasons this is still a viable franchise, viable game, because it isn't growing super fast. So whatever they do, they can't be too risky with it because they can't scare off who they have.
And do you see this, Grubb, as them launching a separate game entirely with all of the Apex stuff, or maybe just like a separate mode, like how Fortnite has had several different modes, or brought back like no build mode or something similar to that? Like, do they just have no abilities mode?
Right. So, I mean, Wilson says the next phase will then be how do we think about more modalities of play? How do you expand? Yeah, I think which it just means modes beyond the traditional Battle Royale universe. And we'll start to see that in the coming year. So this goes back to Titanfall Legends, which was going to be like the big marquee thing. And that was always going to be Titanfall 3 in spirit, but inserted into the Apex Legends launcher in game browser, and there will be all these different verticals inside of Apex Legends that included the Battle Royale, and we'll start to have even more other ways to play inside of there. And then the other big one will be Titanfall Legends. Now they're not doing that anymore, Titanfall Legends, but all the other sort of smaller modalities of play will still pop into there. So no, this is all going to be part of Apex Legends as one launcher, similar to what happens with Call of Duty these days. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, I'd definitely give that a shot. But boy, I think this would have worked a lot better if you were doing Titanfall Legends still. But of course, I think that.
Yeah. Can you just slide Titans into this game? Can you just do that?
I mean, they better. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, how have they not pulled that trigger in 5 years? And these other modes, I guess that gives you a chance to do that. But like, what has taken so long? I don't know.
I feel like they just don't. It feels like EA has been searching for an answer with Apex to increase the player counts and player interest from folks that aren't already in the ecosystem. And I think the world is screaming at them, Jeff Grubb. Mechs. Add Titans. But they don't want to do it. I don't know if I want another mode, Grubb. I don't think I want a death match. I don't think a dedicated death match or dedicated maybe like 4-person squad dropping into the Battle Royale is enough to sway me to check out Apex Legends again.
What about an extraction shooter, huh, Jan?
Actually,
maybe. Okay, well, how about let's say you have 4 characters and you go down and you run co-op missions against like bugs, maybe these robots, and you work together and you call down maybe mechs, but you can call down other things to help you.
What? You know what? What about they just make Rainbow Six Siege, but with Apex?
That's not a bad idea, Jan, 'cause they already got the characters. It's not a bad idea.
They all have abilities.
Cool. They do.
Most of them could not most of them, but some of them could set up defense like items and stuff. What about you do that, EA? Cut the check there.
The third phase will be, how do we really think about broader culturalization, which is what you always want to hear from a CEO. There are so many markets, particularly in Europe and through Asia, where we just haven't broken through yet. And if you haven't yet, you kind of just don't, right? Like, people pick their game. Like, go look at the Steam most played list. And I guarantee every single one of you listening to the show will be shocked at how high PUBG still is because of Asia. Because people in Asia are still playing PUBG every single day, 500,000 of them. They've picked their game. And Apex Legends is not PUBG. And people throughout Asia want to play PUBG. So, you're good. They're going to put the Monkey King in there, right? They're going to do that thing, the Journey to the West, like that we always see. And that's cool. But every game does that. That's not going to make much of a difference for you. So to me, this is all part of the broader, we are actually looking toward the long end tail off of Apex Legends. And this is about growing where we can, but understanding that smaller investments are the only thing we're going to do, because those bigger investments are not going to get the return we want. That's why Titanfall Legends got canceled, because they're like, we can make this big AAA game development investment into Apex Legends, and we don't believe it's going to pay off in the end. That's where they are with Apex Legends. So all this stuff should be couched in that understanding, that this is not about like turning Apex Legends from a big game into an even bigger game. It's about getting some spurts of growth here and there so that they can have some pretty good quarters in the future, and make some, squeeze some more money out of this before the end, which probably, again, is like 5 years away.
I also feel like them adding stuff like, now we got the Monkey King is not enough of like whatever cultural bag they're trying to go for, Grubb. Because it feels like that's the most low-hanging fruit. It's like if we added a panda to the game. Like, what's up, Asians? Yep. We got pandas now. Yep. Instead of actually having a character that is like, deeply rooted and has their culture as a main facet of their character, or at least like that is just like who they are. Like, I believe, folks watching live, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the original Apex characters, very heavy on like the Polynesian influence in how they present themselves. And I think that carries more weight.
It does.
To me, at least, rather than someone, we threw in Maui into the game.
Right. Yeah, and Gibraltar, as Dougman's pointing out.
Gibraltar,
that's right, Gibraltar, right, totally. And I think, right, that carries more weight, and yet that only does so much as well, right? Like, you, at a certain point, it's like, hey, Overwatch already did all this, and in many cases better, in terms of having these characters from different backgrounds and ethnicities. And what you're doing here is like, it's welcome. You should be doing it. That's what we want.
Totally.
But it's not going to shift markets. It's not going to shift entire cohorts of players.
Also, if you're, I feel like having a culturally authentic character is not just appealing to that specific culture, but to other people. Like, I don't want to fucking play as a leprechaun, Grubb.
Yeah.
But someone that is like strongly, deeply rooted in like Irish culture, I could get down with that. Let me do that.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing, goes to like the current controversy right now where people are freaking out about this consultancy firm. But what that consultancy firm, Sweet Baby Inc., really does is make it so that when you do a character, you can make them really specific and authentic. And that stuff I love that stuff. Gibraltar is awesome because I could tell that it is born out of a reality that feels true, and that specificity is the real storytelling. And I think that is something that you kind of can't make a game that at a certain point, that's table stakes these days. So it's like, when he talks about culturalization and trying to appeal worldwide, it's another uphill battle. It's another like, hey, you should do more of that. No one's saying you shouldn't. But this, like that being the third pillar of this 3-tier strategy, yeah, that's going to get you another couple percentage points, another turn of the dial, and it's worth trying. You should do it, but it's not going to turn Apex Legends into, continuing to be the next Fortnite or something like that.
I just looked at those PUBG numbers, Grubb. It's insane.
It's shocking. And I'm someone who adores PUBG. I love it. And when I see that, I'm like, oh my God, there are so many people still playing that game.
I enjoy finding quiet storms like that. Of like, oh, y'all have been here, huh? Okay, cool.
Yep. And that doesn't include PUBG Mobile, which is also huge. Just massively popular. All right. Let's see here. EA says generative AI could make it 30% more efficient and boost monetization by up to 20% over 5 years. Good luck. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Electronic Arts CEO Andrew Wilson has outlined the transformative impact he believes generative artificial intelligence can have on the company and the wider games business over the next 5 years. Speaking at that conference, he basically said, greater efficiency coupled with deeper, more immersive experiences will lead to significant audience expansion over the next few years and provide a multi-billion-dollar growth opportunity. Wilson said that in the past, it might take 6 months to build an in-game sports stadium. Over the last 12 months, that time has shrunk to 6 weeks. And over the coming years, it could maybe be cut down to 6 days. Now, efficiency and workers being able to do more with less is a natural part of the growing economies, and so there is no way on God's green earth that a CEO is going to ignore something like generative AI. They are going to try to implement it. Now, I think that they are going to be stepping into a bit of a beehive there if people see something that is obviously AI, and it's going to feel like I'm paying full price for this, and you are giving me this schlock. You're giving me this absolute slop. And so they're going to have to be very careful with it. And yet, Jan, I'm just going to speak for myself. I use Photoshop, and I started to use the generative AI stuff in there to hey, I'm going to highlight this part of the image. Can you just create a border for me here? And it does it. And it's like, okay, being able to speak English to a computer and getting the results from it, I'm not going back either. So, I mean, I can only be so much of a hypocrite here. I think the reality will be we get through this, and at the end of the day, EA is still going to need creative, artistic people to make their games better than other people who all have these same tools. So hopefully these efficiencies are a small little speed bump, and then we get on the other side, and once again, we are just actually making bigger and better games with as many people, if not more, than ever before. But I don't know, Jan. I think you use creative tools more than I do. How do you feel all about this?
I think what CEOs and these big shareholder people only see is just the reduction of staffs, right?
Yes, that's of course, yes.
And I don't think they know or have been able to see yet that just because you reduce the staff and you're using more AI doesn't actually lead to anything more substantial or more creative at all. You're kind of just filling in holes at this point, right? Like you said, Grubb, your use case for it is you just needed a border versus okay, you could tell Photoshop to make a border, but if you're not going to be able to articulate to it, and it's not going to be able to make an artistic border of what you actually want in your head if you have a grander idea.
Yes, if you have specific ideas, yes, it is very unreliable. I mean, listen, and I think it's going to get better, Jan. It will get better.
Totally, yeah.
It gets better for everybody, right? And then the person who is most creative is still going to be able to use those tools the best, right? I mean, I'm definitely, that's an optimistic view.
Sure.
I just don't think Andrew Wilson is going to be ever going to be able to go to an AI and say, make me Madden 26. And then out pops a perfectly pristine game where it was never touched by any human hands. It's just not going to happen. And if it does, the company that competes with him, it says, hey, make me Madden 26, and still has 1,000 people working on it to spruce up every aspect of it, will outperform that game. I think that's how this is going to work here.
Yeah, you are never going to be able to tell AI, at least where it is right now, make me Into the Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah.
That is not going to happen. After Spider-Verse comes out, hey, I can totally rip it off and appropriate all of that art style and all of those resources. but you're never going to be able to come up with that type of stuff. I saw the most insane thing, and someone is trying to make an AI camera where instead, where it will take the image in front of you and then kind of spit out all these different, I guess like the scripting words that you would have to plug in to an AI generator after the fact. So if you just saw if you take a picture of a car by a sunset, it'd be like car, sunset, old vehicle, blah, blah, blah to the left. And it's like, this isn't it, guys. Like, I don't know what y'all are thinking. Also, like, I want to believe, Grubb, and this may be wishful thinking, I want to believe that the consumer at home is smarter and better enough to tell when something is made better.
Right.
And that's not just in terms of products that we're consuming in terms of food or things that we're using, but also media that we're consuming, where it's like, hey, maybe this cartoon that I'm putting on for my children isn't as good as the cartoons I was consuming for a specific reason. Or when that comes to games, right? Like, this mobile game, I know it's a Mario ripoff, but like Mario ripoffs used to be good. This feels like garbage.
Yeah, I think most consumers probably won't be able to tell the difference at a certain point here in the future. But maybe like subconsciously, maybe still they will be able to, I hope. And at the very least, I think that if something is just made with AI, people probably won't care. But if another thing is made with AI and then also made better by having people involved, I just think that thing will be actually better. And I don't see how that changes because what we're here for is I want to play something that feels like it was made with passion, and that's just not going to happen if it's all automated.
Yeah. For instance, like in terms of using AI in a production atmosphere, I saw a YouTuber bragging like, oh yeah, I don't cut my podcast anymore. I just set it to AI and AI does it. And then I tuned in, or I fired up their podcast. The thing is, I get what they're trying to do with AI, where it'll do like that Google Meet or that Zoom style thing of cutting to whoever's talking. But in that process that this creator has yet to realize, you lose any type of reaction or like facial recognition of like, oh, okay, this person is responding to me non-verbally by nodding their head, or their fur or eyebrows furred by whatever asshole take I have to say. I just Grubb, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, what we know for sure is they're gonna try, and they're gonna try to do it as cheap as possible. And I just continue to think the good news here is there will be someone right next to them spending a little bit more money, using people to do a few things here and there that will do things better. And then we're just right back to the arms race. There's too much competition in games for them to be able to actually get away with something that is legitimately worse. So if, as good as AI can be, someone's going to be able to do it better with a little bit more work. And then it's hard to see it going any other route than that. Just means we balloon right back up and have as many people making games as always. But I could be naive here. And if I am, let's find out. We will find out.
I want to hear and see the other folks in this room that Andrew was in. Like, I want to feel the pulse of all these people and see where their mind is at.
The Morgan Stanley event, Jan, I tell you that they love the idea of cutting labor costs. Hey, your biggest expense is labor costs. What are you going to do about that? And then Andrew Wilson screams, AI, leave me alone. That's the vibe of that room. I promise you.
I know that it is, but I'm just morbidly curious. I want someone to propose, Grubb, that we replace all of these CEO folks with AI. What about that?
Right? They already have been replaced by them. Like, think about how does Netflix make their decisions on content? Excuse me, I'm still a little sick. They have algorithms that tell them what to greenlight and what not to greenlight. What the fuck do we need the CEOs for? They're not the ones programming those algorithms. What are we doing here, everybody? They should already be replaced. All right. EU says it's investigating why Apple terminated Epic's developer account. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. The European Union has said it's investigating Apple's decision to terminate Epic Games' iOS developer account. On Wednesday, it emerged that Apple had rescinded a recently granted developer account created by Epic in Sweden with the aim of launching Fortnite and the Epic Game Store on Apple's devices in Europe. We have requested further explanation on this from Apple under the DMA, the Digital Markets Act. A European Commission spokesperson told Reuters, referring to a new EU regulation which aims to ensure that so-called gatekeepers like Apple don't use their dominant position in the market to stifle competition. Basically, we're going to look into this. Apple has basically said that Epic is demonstrably untrustworthy, and then Tim Sweeney argues back you guys are basically doing the malicious consent or whatever it is, just agreeing to do things but in a malicious way. And so they're still fighting. And the EU is kind of having to be mom and go and breaking them up. So we'll see what happens between them. But as it stands, Apple and Google are both listen, we're going to do what we have to do to abide by the law, but if we could still say fuck you, Epic, we're gonna. And it's oh boy, we're not going to hear the end of this from Tim Sweeney, I don't think, anytime soon. So these companies are still retaliating against one another, absolutely. But we don't know where this is going to land anytime soon.
Tim Cook is ready with some spray cans to tag up that Epic Mall.
Right. I always think about Tim Sweeney emailing Tim Cook and Tim Cook just kind of being man, what? That scene from Uncut Gems of no, keep that guy out of here. Don't let him in, no matter what. That's what I think of Tim Sweeney. All right, that does it for the news. I'm going to get the poll up here in a second. While I'm getting that set up, Jan, what do we have going on the website? Where can people find you on the internet? All that good stuff.
People don't find me on the internet.
Yeah,
don't
leave
find
Jan
me
alone.
I'm tired of being perceived, as the children say. Actually, no, perceive me away. Today we got voicemail dump truck popping off. We have special guest Matt Shipman joining the pod today. And tomorrow, very exciting. I don't know how we're gonna do this with the schedule we have set out, Grubb. We got Game S Mornings popping off tomorrow, but we have Unprofessional Fridays, the Mario Grand Prix, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where you, Sean, Mike Minotti, and Dan Reichert are going to set off and race in all those courses. Why? We have a podcast to do later that day. But hey, we'll see we'll see how we can wind up scheduling everything. And yeah, exciting things. Exciting things are always around. If folks missed yesterday's new season of Blight Club, I highly suggest that you check it out, because I think the hubris that Dan Reichert had in terms of conquering those rings was quickly stomped out by the rest of the game.
Put him in his place. Absolutely.
Yes.
Jan, speaking of those tools real quick, you mentioned rotoscoping. What should I be doing if I want to rotoscope something?
Oh, well, okay. So a little inside baseball, folks. My internet connection has been up and down for the past couple days, so I had to do some resource flipping to a couple other computers, iPads, and then eventually my phone to cut together the Super Dan intro. But the current iteration of After Effects, the rotoscoping tool, is as easier and as good as it has ever been. There's a lot less correction going on, where you just trace over what you want to cut out, and then they'll pop it out.
Huh. Technology. What a concept.
Yeah.
All right. Poll question from yesterday. Let's get that up here. Have you? Yes. No. All right. Are you excited for Multiverses to come back? 14% say yes. 86% say no. How about you, Jan?
No, not at all. It feels like they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes again and make money off of me.
Yeah.
Even though it's free to play.
I mean, yeah, it's free to play, but it's they, or is it? Yeah, it is free to play, right? Yeah, okay. I can't, yes, this one was free to play, and then you could buy characters and stuff, and people were doing that, and then they took the game away. I mean, why would most people who did that be excited about that game? Just wait till it comes out and see if they're actually going to leave it out this time. It's uncertain at this point, the future of that game. So I don't blame most people for being skeptical. New poll question, pretty similar. Have you played Apex Legends? Yes, no, or I have no interest. I just kind of see if people are still thinking about maybe I should get into Apex Legends. It feels like most people have already made their decision on that game. But I at the very least, there are people who are continuing to work on that. I hope that all that stuff they're doing with the new modalities of play take off. If you put mix in there, I'll show up. 100% I'll be there.
I think I've always I like Apex Legends, and I think I've always been curious about going back. But
Yeah.
in the same way where it feels like everyone else has outpaced me, and that might any newbies around me aren't existent on the platform. That's the intimidating part, Grubb.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll just go play Titanfall 2 again. Instead.
Are they gonna, by modalities? I'm thinking about this now. Are they just gonna try and do Valorant? Are they gonna just try and make CS:GO with Apex?
Probably. Yeah, probably. They probably will do that, and that could work. But they should just put Titanfall 2 in there as an option. That's what they should really do. That would be very cool. All right. I think that's going to wrap it up. Yeah, I think we're all set here. Jan, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Grubb. It's my favorite way to start a Thursday. Hey, we'll talk about Unicorn Overlord tomorrow on BCR.
Yep. On BCR, we'll make some stuff happen with that. And then thank you, everybody, for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.